Get Cintas and get ready for the workday.
On that in terms of this rotation. On top of the rotation, there's also a decent amount of straight line wind that we are seeing, as this is overall taking a kind of a bit of a bow shape here. So we go on to the regular velocity, and you can kind of make that out. So there's some decent wind here. Now granted, there is not a severe thunderstorm warning in effect here or a strong thunderstorm alert. So that means that these sustained gusts with this line are actually under 40 miles per hour right now. It's just that we have the bit of rotation that is currently in the eastern part of Upson County and making its way towards Monroe County. Now, as for the overall storm activity, we're going to be tracking these through the evening and overnight hours. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 11 p.m., right? So that's got Bibb County, we've got Crawford County, Jones, all the way over into Jasper, Putnam. You do see that there's also these two tornado warnings further to the north. There's been a lot of quick spin-ups just to the south of the Atlanta metro and further east. There were some independent little cells out front that, as they got absorbed up into the line, were rotating. Now that has largely stayed obviously south of us here in middle Georgia, and this that we're tracking is actually not a case of that. I've mentioned in the past how you'll have lines, and usually in those lines there's a little kink somewhere, there's a little bend, and that bend is the area that you got to watch. Well, this has been the bendy area since it came over from south of Columbus and over in Alabama. So it tracked in from the west, and it's just been a continuous spy to monitor. So we're going to continue to monitor this line. Even if this warning does lift, we can definitely make the argument that, you know, if you're along this path here, so we're talking through Monroe County, over into Jones County, possibly a bit of Baldwin, and then over into Hancock. This blue line I've just drawn is where this kink in the line is going to be tracking as we continue through the evening and into the overnight hours, pushing towards midnight. So that is most certainly the main area to watch with this system. You actually can notice that off to our south, this line is more bent to the west. It's not as north-south oriented as what we are seeing further off to the north in that Atlanta area.
When you're in need, knowing where to go for help is the first step. At HopeMapGeorgia.org, we've placed thousands of assistance locations on one map so you can easily find help near you. Visit HopeMapGeorgia.org today. Hope is just a click away.
And if we do have hail going on anywhere, it's most certainly here in Upson County. In fact, let's go ahead and go into the 3D mode and see what we may possibly have going on in regards to that. You can actually see that pink kind of sticking up over that storm. And yeah, there's most certainly a bit of a hail core on top of that rotation that we are tracking coming from Upson County and making its way into the southwest.
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on, high-impact learning. Now with the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Obviously, and the nature of every tornado warning, by the way, that's been issued with this system has been the brief spin-up kind. We're not talking long tracking EF2, EF3s. These at the max would be an EF. Seeing a debris signature, this definitely makes that hard to indicate when it's right here on the edge, and you see all this blue here. I can't just be like, oh, this spot is guaranteed a tornado north of Culloden, because we don't have enough convincing evidence from our other scans that we have something on the ground here, right? Regular velocity, that's mainly for tracking straight line winds. You can make that out along the Boeing section of this storm as it's moving towards the Butler area over in Taylor County right now. Roberta, you may also see your straight line winds pick up here within the next 15 to 20 minutes as this is moving in to Crawford County. But in terms of rotation, there's not a whole lot going on here. Now, that being said, we do need to pay attention to that because this is a decent distance from the radar. It's not ridiculously far, but we're not getting a good visual of at the surface. Has overperformed. SPC actually went and issued a level 2 at like 8:30 p.m. It was level 1 all day. And then after about 3 tornado warnings came down over in Spalding County, Henry County, Clayton County, this general area, SPC is like, all right, things have been overperforming just a little bit in terms of what we were expecting for today. So still a little bit of rotation going on. We really can see that with the outflow of these storms going on here. Green means wind that's moving towards the radar. radar. Red is when it's moving away, so not much of inflow going on with this, which is good news. The stronger the inflow is, that's when you start really having to worry about a more intense tornado. This is more storm outflow, and there might be a little bit of inflow going on, but it's most certainly not being indicated very well if there is. Either way, if you are in that Forsyth area, we're talking about 10 minutes or so before this rotation is going to move into that area. Somewhere between Forsyth, possibly Bolingbroke. It does look like it may go a little more south of where it was initially expected to go, but there'll be a lot of heavy rain in regards to this as well. You see all that pink, most certainly some hail in there. I do like that we don't have too much of a bulge on this end anymore.
Track capable, street proven, American made. Suspension for every road.
And you can see how this is coming in. It's not super well defined here, but if I go back an hour, what you'll end up seeing is
Jeep the right way. Use our J-rated grading system to find a suspension system that's right for your riding style.
G6. Yeah, it is G6.
this little S area. Those are always going to be your rotation areas when we start talking about squall lines moving through a quasi-convective linear system. So what we are seeing is in that kink a little bit of rotation, and it's never long-lived. Like upper levels it might be, but at the surface.
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now with the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Also can make them a little more dangerous, because instead of it being something that is a steady, oh, we've seen this develop, we know this is on the ground, it's more likely to catch someone off guard because it can spin up just that quickly. So we're still monitoring in southwestern Monroe County as of right now in regards to this rotation. It is not anything overly impressive. And again, in terms of this warning, let's go ahead and see when that is set to expire. 10:30 p.m. So another 30 minutes that this is going to be in effect around the county. It's literally just Monroe that we're worried about. I wouldn't focus too much on the Crawford County portion of this. Lamar maybe a little bit, but based on where this notch is near Culloden, I wouldn't worry too much about that. It looks like it's going to almost go a little bit south of Forsyth, a little bit north of Bolingbroke, kind of right in between those two. Could end up crossing I-75 if it were to maintain itself. Again, there is still not very impressive rotation or inflow, but we do have some decent outflow in regard regards to that. The good news is the fact that in terms of the straight line winds overall with this system, those are not too bad. We do have this strong thunderstorm alert that's in effect until midnight, and that's kind of for this whole area. So that goes into Bibb County, that goes into Jones County, and it includes Jasper County as well. Actually, that's Putnam, excuse me. It's Jasper and Putnam. Both of those are in it. But the main thing that we are focused on here is this tornado warning. So just a little bit of rotation still going on with this in the southwestern portion of Monroe County. This is tracking off again towards Interstate 75. This is moving at about 45 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken. So now it's when we got Bolingbroke in there. That's about 10:20 to 10:25 p.m. that we would see this arrival. If I zoom in a little further, let's see if we get any other areas that kind of pop up in this cone. It doesn't look like there's too many of them, which is good news, but definitely want to be starting to take shelter. And I would still take shelter in Forsyth as well, especially on the southern end, just to be safe. That safe place is going to be your lowest level, most interior room. So we are talking a bathroom potentially. Anywhere in a basement will be good to go. As long as it's underground, you should be fine. I know there's not a lot of storms or a lot of homes with storm cellars around here. There are some tornado shelters in the area, but it's important to know where those are kind of ahead of time before we get into this situation. Once you're under the warning, getting on the road is probably not a great idea. Probably not a great idea. This is not necessarily driving weather while we have those hazards about. But mobile homes, also not a safe place to be. Something to think about ahead of these events is if you're in a mobile home, you want to make sure that you have a shelter that you know where it is, or just a more stable building. It could be a local store, whatever it may be. Remember, property is replaceable, lives are not. So most interior, lower level room of the building that you are in is where you want to be, and we are seeing this again. We are currently in the warning in Forsyth. I know Bolingbroke isn't, but this seems more in the path of the rotation that we are currently tracking in regards to this system here. Let's go ahead and pull up the regular radar again and see if that notch has backed off just a little bit. It has. Still a little bit going on here. This is definitely the most intense rain that we are seeing along this line right now. We do have these areas further to the south, but with the orientation I'm seeing here, it's going to be interesting to see if there maybe ends up being like a cutoff. Like, is there going to be somewhere that gets cut off of our region from the rain overnight tonight and into tomorrow that maybe sets up a bit of a boundary for our Sunday morning if we're going to have any rain chances early tomorrow? Should be a pretty nice day for a lot of us, but somewhere like Eastman, McRae, Alamo, we may get a little bit of rain chances to get things going tomorrow. It's just very interesting to see how things are a little oriented differently. It's more northwest off to our north, and it's almost more west-northwest off to our south. It's just not the same orientation with that line. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of pans out. I also like the fact that we aren't seeing another bendy area, and the fact that there aren't little cells out in front to get absorbed, because that was what provoked all these tornado warnings that were off to the north not too long ago. There is a lot of bowing going on, by the way, over in, especially to the north, Jasper and Putnam counties. I always mix up these three. It's more, but it is still enough there to keep this warning. Again, it is set to expire at 10:30. That is another 23 minutes that we will continue to monitor this rotation here. If we look at the regular velocity, you can make out where those straight line winds are. And I do like the fact that outside of this tornado warning, there are no severe thunderstorm warnings. There are strong thunderstorm alerts. The difference between those two, it can be varied depending on hail or wind. If it's hail, severe thunderstorms are going to have hail that's a diameter of 1 inch or greater. If it's less than that, but you still got some hail, pea-sized, penny-sized, that's going to qualify more than likely for one of these strong thunderstorm alerts. The other is wind. 60-plus mile-an-hour gusts is a severe thunderstorm warning. 40-plus mile-per-hour gusts is a strong thunderstorm alert. And if it's 80-plus mile-an-hour winds, that's when you get a destructive severe thunderstorm warning. Do not ever want to see those 80-mile-an-hour gusts, guys. That is Category 1 hurricane intensity. So, as we continue to monitor this one lone tornado warning that is currently in Monroe County, heading over, again, the area of interest, kind of over that Russellville, Dias, not exactly sure how to pronounce that, so forgive me if I am butchering the pronunciation of your town. Somewhere between Forsyth, Bolingbroke, that Smar area is what we are watching in regards to where the area of interest should go. So it's moving again about 45 miles per hour. So kind of coming from about right here and heading out about 45 miles an hour. So Bolingbroke again, that's that 10, 20, 10, 25 range. You're not in the warning right now, but just to be aware that you are kind of in the path of where that notch is. Forsyth, you guys are probably good. Looks like it's going to stay to your south. Same with Brent. But Bolingbroke, maybe a little bit over into Bibb County with Castlegate. We'll see if they end up expanding this warning in the next 20 minutes. There's still 20 more minutes that we can hope that this rotation will begin to dissipate. As for hail, it does look like the hail is maybe cutting off a little bit. There's a lot that there's been with this storm as it's moved into the area, but it looks like, let's see, with that heaviest rain, if that pink lines up with where the heaviest is right now. So
suspension to handle your bad ideas.
But it looks like, let's see, with that heaviest rain, if that pink lines up with where the heaviest is right now. So
since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now with the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Anything overly large, as if it was, I think we would see a severe thunderstorm warning around this as well, although sometimes these tornado warnings can also be tagged with hail of up to an inch. So we can go ahead and make the assumption that there might be hail of up to an inch with this storm that is pretty concentrated. It's an embedded cell within the line. If I go ahead and outline where that is for you, it's almost like a kidney bean shape. So right through here, an embedded cell, something you always want to look for when you're tracking these lines, and those typically are around the bendy parts of the lines, but that's where that rotation will very often end up occurring. So just spin up rotation, don't think around it, and then you'd see like a green or a blue dot in the middle that indicates debris. If you're wondering how this works, think about rain. When rain is falling, it's all consistent raindrops that look the same. What the radar is looking for is erratic objects being thrown about, like, oh, that's not just rain, that's pieces of dirt, wood, sticks, whatever it may be, debris, and that's what will end up showing up as a green or a blue dot that's in the middle of that rotation. This is very, very weak rotation that we are seeing in regards to this system. Bolingbroke is still the main area, and Smar to watch for this as it continues to track off to the northeast. I do want to go ahead real quickly and see if there are any reports associated with this storm. Have there been reports of any damage coming out of, say, Talbot County or Monroe County? So I'm going to go ahead and report any of that to you. So it does look like with this storm that we're tracking right now, when it was back in Upson County, it had a tornado on the ground that went into the Woodland area. So that is over again in the Upson County off to the north of Thomaston. So, or was it Talbot County? There it is, Woodland, right? So it's in Talbot County, just to the west of Upson County. So that was when we kind of first saw this thing get warm. So that was a confirmed tornado warning. And then in terms of other damage reports out of that, it does not look like there is anything else to report in terms of this one storm outside of what was seen over in the Woodland area, but I'm sure more reports may end up coming in as we continue through the evening and overnight hours. Hopefully there is not too much damage associated with this storm here, but it definitely was a little more intense as that moved through that area, and there's still some decent bowing here. Something that'll be interesting to watch is now we're not really seeing that notch as much anymore, but if we go to regular velocity, I've mentioned the straight line wind. As this kind of starts to bow out a little bit, there could be a bit of an enhancement in the straight line wind threat, so would not be shocked at all if we ended up getting a strong thunderstorm alert that maybe extends a little bit further south into Crawford County.
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now at the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Warner Robins, Gordon, but we still got, again, a lot of area for this to cross over before that happens. We're still continuing to monitor this kink in the line. I also want to point out that it does seem like the overall line is weakening, which has kind of been the trend through the evening.
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now at the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Right now. Hopefully, again, that this will expire at 10:30. I don't think, based on what we're seeing here, that it will get extended. If it were to be extended, now we're starting to talk about I-75, right? We're starting to talk about the fact that it's a Saturday night. There may not be too many people on the road, but it is obviously a major travel artery for us here in the Peach State. So that will be something to keep an eye on as this approaches that I-75 area. What kind of rotation are we seeing? And right now, not much at all. It'll be interesting to see if they allow this warning to expire early. I can also check and see if there's any alerts on that here in a second. But regardless of whether or not they do, the good news is definitely this has weakened in terms of the overall rotation on it. There's still a lot of outflow. A lot of outflow is one thing. You're going to see a lot of outflow with these storms. When there is a wind threat in general,
you can buy a car anywhere, but at Volume Chevrolet, we know it's the dealer that makes the difference.
That's why every new Volume Chevrolet comes with our exclusive 20-year, 200,000-mile warranty, 24-hour roadside assistance, and oil changes for life. And most of all, we treat you like a neighbor, not a number, at Volume Chevrolet in Forsyth, or visit us online at volumechevrolet.com.
So bring the doggos and experience the difference at Volume Chevrolet. Volume Chevrolet!
And then you get your more dangerous, obviously, tornadoes. Luckily, that is most certainly not what we are seeing here. It is outflow wind that we are largely tracking, which can very quickly shift into a straight line wind threat, which is what is typical when we start getting lines like what we are seeing here. And the line as a whole is most certainly weakening. As I've been tracking this, since about 7 p.m. coming from terms of the threat versus a tornado, because even an EF0 tornado is still 70 to 80 plus mile an hour winds that can be very damaging to roofs, cars, other things. These straight line wind threat, we're probably talking 50 to 60 miles per hour at the most for tonight, so that would be weaker than an EF0 tornado. So we're seeing the worst of this. Monroe County, Bibb County, we're going to be seeing that wind picking up in the western portions. Just be aware, you may be hearing that wind, feeling that wind pick up a good bit over the next half hour or so in the western portions of Bibb County. As for us in Monroe, still this Bowling area right here, tracking it towards Bolingbroke as we have been, and that's that 10:20, 10:25 p.m. mark. Rotation continuing to get less and less impressive. Oh, there is this little spot over Smar here. It does not jump out at me. We'll wait and see what another scan does end up revealing in regards to that, but it's definitely good that the rotation is weakening overall. And by the way, in terms of this whole thing we've been tracking here,
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now with the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
Actually, if it were going to be till 10:30, probably should have been a little bit further out. Either way, definitely a bit of a hail threat going on as this continues. I'll go ahead and stay with you guys for another 8 minutes until we do see this polygon expire, and we'll take another peek at the hail core. Let's see if that has intensified at all, the hail core on this. So maybe a little bit, Hasn't grown too much, but definitely a pretty good updraft still on this storm with some hail going on. I do want to see if there's any reports of how big that hail may be. They're going to let the tornado warning drop from Monroe and replace with severe. We're there. There's still some tornado potential in the area given the boundary, but overall the environment it's moving into is less favorable. So that's good. And we are noticing that trend again along the whole line, is that there's not a whole lot of warnings outside of what we are seeing here in Monroe, Northern Bibb, and Western Jones counties. Now let's go ahead and turn on lightning. Let's see how much of that's going on. Because I mentioned it gets in the way, it can clutter things up. That's honestly not bad. That's another thing to keep an eye on is lightning counts, because as lightning counts diminish, that's most certainly an indicator that your line of storms is weakening. Guys, we've had lines come through here that number that right now says 192 or whatever it is has said, 1,000 plus. This is not an overly organized system. It's just that there's been some embedded circulations in there that have maybe tried to spin up. We're going to wait and see if we get any confirmation if there, it was a tornado that dropped with this in Monroe County. We did get confirmation from Talbot County. Woodland, they confirmed a tornado touchdown there. This is that same storm. Did that indeed touch down in southwestern Monroe County? As of right now, I do not have confirmation on that. Nothing that I saw on the radar would suggest that a tornado touched down in Monroe County. But storm spotters or people who are out and see damage, we'll have a better idea on that. We'll have that news for you likely as we get into the beginning of the new week. The main thing with this right now is the hail, and there is a pretty good chunk of that is about to cross over the I-75. Let's see if the camera is picking up on that. The I-75 corridor getting a lot of heavy rain. That hail will be probably a little bit south of what we are seeing here from our lovely view courtesy of Volume Chevrolet. So the rain also is going to probably pick up a little bit more as this storm crosses. Again, you see the road right there. You can see here's I-75 and the heaviest of those storms crossing over it now. Let's go ahead and get back into regular view and check that out. The travel conditions are definitely less than optimal at this moment in time. Not somewhere that I would want to be is on the interstate, especially right here with this heaviest rain through Monroe County. That hail definitely moved to the Bolingbroke area, just to the north through Smar. So this whole stretch, Forsyth, Smar, Bolingbroke, along I-75, there is likely some hail going on there. Hopefully it's not damaging any vehicles. Also, the concentration of lightning is a lot greater with this one storm than it is elsewhere. Also, take note, this faint green.
Since 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been a leader in hands-on high-impact learning. Now with the university's 3-year bachelor's degrees, students can save money, graduate sooner, and start their careers earlier. Because in today's world, success shouldn't have to wait.
It should expire here in the next 4 minutes. I've already asked. They said they're going to ride it out, so we got 4 more minutes in which that warning will be down. And in terms of if it were to get re-warned again for tornado concerns, it's essentially the counties that are in the severe thunderstorm watch right now. So Jones County, Baldwin County, maybe a bit over into Jasper, or excuse me, this is Putnam County and Hancock County. You can see where this storm is. But if we shift over and check just how the development of this has been over the last hour, it is pretty evident that there's been a good bit of weakening going on, especially when you start looking up towards that Atlanta area where there were 3 active tornado warnings earlier, and now we just have the one that's going to expire here in about 4 minutes. So we have 6 or 7 counties that are still under the severe thunderstorm watch. Be super confident on that one, but Wilkinson, Twiggs, Houston, Peach, and Macon counties will be the ones to keep an eye on in terms of the watch expanding one more row, just based on where these storms are. I'm not really worried about these that we're seeing develop. It will be, I guess, a little interesting what's going on over here to the west. I believe this is Marion County to the west of Buena Vista. Looks like there might be a bit of hail that's developing over with this storm, but that is not extremely pardon my wording here, but kinky looking in terms of the snaking in the same way that we were seeing with this one as it moved into Upson and Monroe County. So we'll again continue to monitor that, see if it does end up developing. We do have the gust front also ahead of this wind could pick up in a few spots before the storms end up getting to your area. But at this moment in time, the good news is we have seen a